A shalom, shalom. First and foremost, let's give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Hawashai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquathim. Listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will, as always, an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I just want to go through the topic I have on the screen here is a man of honor is decorated, right? And I mean that spiritually. I don't mean that first. It's spiritual first, and eventually, it plays out into the physical. But most importantly, it is spiritual, right? And what inspired this lesson really was a quick experience that I had, dealing with a customer. So, to make a long story short, I have a side business where I do orders for customers, and I was dealing with a situation essentially where a customer had ordered something and it took a lot longer than it needed to be, right? Because I have a supplier who does particular things for me on my behalf. Now, the customer, got concerned because it was their first time, and when I was able to complete the order, I was able to offer them something complimentary as well, because I felt bad about what I had transpired, right? Because there were just factors I couldn't control. Now, when I sat down and I gave the customer the order, one of the things that they appreciated was the fact that I stuck by my word, and I held up essentially I held up a character that is upright, that is moral, right? I wasn't trying to scheme them or put a wall over their eyes or trying to swindle them in any sort of way. I wasn't trying to do any of that. What I was trying to do was just get what they had asked for, right? Because a lot of our people do these particular things, and they take advantage of our people, whether they have like a side business, and even take advantage of their own people as well, right? So this is going back to the topic of the lesson. Our man of honor is decorated, and I'm not saying this and making this testimony to make this lesson about me. I'm just using myself as an example of what Yahweh Bashim El Shai has done for me by transforming the renewing of my mind so I know how to act accordingly, when you deal with your day-to-day people in the world, right? Not It's not about essentially the scripture. As a matter of fact, let me get this quick scripture actually, because I don't want to ramble on and make the lesson, make this about me. I'm just using this experience as an example, as edification, for you brothers and few sisters who may listen, right? So Sirach 19, verse 29, it says, "A man shall be known by his look, and one who hath understanding by his countenance when thou meetest him. A man's attire, excessive laughter, and gait show what he is," right? And gait refers to the way a person conducts themselves, the way a person walks. Going back to the title of the lesson, right? So the next precept, I didn't have this on the screen, but I didn't want to make this about me, but it's really about Yahweh Bashim Yahushai actually reforming our minds to become men of honor. And that's where that's how we're decorated. We're decorated in the spirit with these different traits, these different virtues. Jeremiah verse 9, Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 23, and it says, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might, let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, he that understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord Yahweh, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth, for in these things I delight, saith the Lord Yahweh." Right? So, I'm not making this to boast in, in myself, in Raquai. I'm not boasting in that. I'm just saying, and I'm pointing out, these are the virtues that, learning of the ways of our forefathers, learning how Yahweh Shai conducted himself, has cultivated us and our minds to conduct ourselves in a particular way, because a lot of our men in our nation, they cultivate themselves after the ways of the heathen, after the ways of the so-called white people, and the way they conduct themselves, the rap culture, the gangster culture. That is not ways that are pleasing to the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right? So this is why I'm making these lessons. This is why I'm making this particular lesson, excuse me, right? So the cornerstone of that conduct well, it's in this next precept. Just bear with me on this. Okay, so this is Proverbs 1 verse 7. And it says, the fear of the Lord Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Verse 8, my son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother, for they shall be an ornament of grace upon thy head and chains upon thy neck. Right? So an ornament is something that's supposed to essentially embellish and make something kind of stand out. And what makes us stand out is these different virtues, because the way we carry ourselves, and people notice these things. People, they pick up on this vibration, right? Because they know you don't act like, your typical, Jake has a normally a bad reputation, amongst these different heathens and so on and so forth. Even amongst their own people, they have a bad reputation, right? But an ornament is something that's supposed to, like when you think about, like think of, for example, of a woman, she wears like a tiara on her head. That ornament, that tiara, that crown is supposed to adorn her and make her face more shiny, and makes her more beautiful. And that's exactly what wisdom and knowledge does for us as young men, right? And chains upon thy neck. I know, and Jake they do these particular things, but what they're missing is the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So they're decked out physically, rather than actually taking the mental preparation to actually adorn themselves in the spirit, right? And they're poor in spirit, they're poor, right? Because they don't have an understanding of who they are, how to conduct themselves. Therefore, they conduct themselves as the ways of the heathen. And in Jeremiah, it also says, learn not the ways of the heathen, right? Now, where was I? Okay, let's go to John. I think it's 20. Okay, John chapter 3, verse 19. And Yahushua said, and this is the condemnation of and this is the condemnation, that the light is come into the world, and men loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. Verse 20, it says, for everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. And that's the spirit the prophets come in. They come in that spirit of reproof, and actually trying to essentially get our people back on the right path, because our people are essentially in the congregation of the dead, and they don't want to be reproved. They want to stay the way they are. They want to essentially, what they want to do is to be left alone. Right? And you see the danger in that, because Yahweh Bashim Shai is going to destroy 2/3 of our people. Verse 21, it says, but he that doeth truth come to the light, and his deeds may be manifest, that they are wrought in Yahweh Bashim Shai. Right? So that's why the deeds are so important, because our people essentially, they know in their spirit that they are kings, but they don't conduct themselves as kings. And that's one of the points I wanted to bring out here, right? So their deeds are evil, regardless of how decked out they look physically. Their deeds, When you look at a lot of his celebrities, I don't really like to touch on this Diddy nonsense because that's all distraction, but I'm just going to use Diddy as an example. Wear a nice chain, hair lined up, waves showing, looking fresh, nice outfit. You see the issue with that, and then look at the things that he does. Look at the way he conducts himself, and he looks at the ways he treats his own people. Right? These are people who have corrupt fruit in their spirit. Essentially, they don't have fruit. They don't have deeds that show manifest of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. They have those deeds of Satan. Right? So let's go to Psalms. And our people need to be cleansed, right? And that's where the decorating really starts. In Psalms 119 verse 9, and it says, "Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto according to thy word. With my whole heart, my mind, have I sought thee. Let me not wander from thy commandments," right? And that's the way we walk in. We walk in a particular fashion that is different from the rest of our people. We don't conduct ourselves as degenerates, and 2/3 of our people conduct themselves as, degenerates, as whores, as people who are, they're essentially they're not a pleasant sight to see, right? Right? So this is why I'm saying a man of honor is decorated, because he's decked out in the spirit, right? And this is what people notice from the way you carry yourself. They notice these things, right? Because your deeds are not evil, your deeds are good, essentially, right? Let's go in. Just bear with me on this. Okay. Since we're talking about, being decorated and adorned and so on and so forth, just bear with me on this. Okay, this is Genesis chapter 41. I want to start at Okay, I'll start at verse 39, and it says, "Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since Yahweh Bashim Yahushai has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly no one else is intelligent or as wise as you are." I'm reading in NLT, by the way. Verse 40, it says, "You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you." This is the Pharaoh speaking to Joseph. It says, "Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a ranking higher than yours." Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt." It says, "Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in fine linen clothing and hung a gold chain around his neck," right? So you see, you know, what made Joseph very stood out, made him decked out in this particular situation, because he had walked in a particular fashion. He was able to actually, he was very intelligent as well, because he was able to actually explain and break down that vision that the Pharaoh had, right? And he wasn't and remember, when you go back, a couple of chapters, or either the chapter before, Joseph, he had spent, some time in prison, because, he was actually accused of, coming onto the Pharaoh's wife. And, we realize, he was just going through his tribulation. But the point really is that, he was a man of intelligence. He was a man, essentially, he was decorated first in the spirit. He was not decorated, and then eventually that spiritual um decoration, that where he was decked out in, that eventually translated into something physical, where he had control and was able to essentially be a good steward over Egypt, right? Essentially second to the Pharaoh, right? Verse 43, and it says, then he had Joseph ride in the chariot reserved for his second in command. And wherever, Joseph went, the command was shouted down, kneel down. So kneel down. So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all Egypt, right? So this is the part where our people are missing, because what they try to do is to essentially circumvent Yahweh Bashim Yahushai by trying to acquire those riches, acquire that wealth, acquire that status, acquire that physical decoration, and without actually doing it with the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, with knowing the Lord, with walking in his ways and his commandments. Our people don't understand that. They're very, very I believe the word is presumptuous. They try to essentially what they're just doing is they're trying to circumvent the Lord, right? Verse 44, it says, and Pharaoh said to him, I am Pharaoh, but no one would lift a hand or foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval, right? So, going back to the story, Joseph was giving all this, what's it called? Jurisdiction over Egypt, right? Because he was able, he was intelligent, he was essentially, he was decked out in that spirit. He had, he had Yahweh Bashim Shai with him, right? Through all his, through his ups and through his downs, right? So, this is how, us, hopefully we are those men that were decorated in that spirit, right? That's why it's so important to be, to walk in a particular fashion, right? And go into the ways of our forefathers and see how they walked in a particular fashion, especially in these times, because in these times, it's a gross darkness, right? So, as a matter of fact, this precept is just coming to my mind. I guess I'll just close off with this last precept. Right? Matthew 5, verse 14, and Yahushua said, You are the light of the world, reading in the NLT, by the way. Like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone around the house, right? So what's very, very interesting about this precept as well, and as I'm thinking about this, as I'm thinking about Joseph's story, when you towards the end of the story, essentially, his brethren and his father have to come down to Egypt to get food, and it comes full circle because his brothers had a hand in selling him into slavery, right? So he becomes that light. Joseph becomes that light, right? And because Yahweh Bashim Shai had his spirit over Joseph, he was able to delegate. He was able to make sure he was essentially an asset for your nation of your people, right? For the nation of Israel, essentially, right? Verse 16, it says, in the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father, right? And when we look at our our situations, sometimes our situations don't always seem the most pleasant, right? But we always want Yahweh Bashim Yahshua to remember these good deeds, especially in times to come, right? And this is always part of that self-development, because our people, they don't want to self-develop. They don't want to actually walk in the stead of knowing what it's like to be a king, right? It's not good enough for you to just say that you're descendants of kings. There's a conduct that must accompany that, right? So anyways, I had a couple more precepts, but to be honest, I made the point, and I sincerely hope that this lesson was edifying. And I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Until next time, I say Shalom.